Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. We have completed chapters 1 to 15 of Panchadasi yesterday. Today and tomorrow are just a summation and concluding aspects. Human life or a jiva has the benefit of two kinds: to get rid of evil and to secure good. Evil is of three folds: death, ignorance, and misery. Good is again of three folds: existence, knowledge, and happiness. Therefore, the objective of a human life is existence as opposed to death, knowledge as opposed to ignorance, and happiness as opposed to misery. Sanatana Dharma teaches us this is achievable provided we follow the four Purusharthas, namely Dharma, Artha, Kama, leading to moksha. Now the choice is only between the two. Do you want all the four? And if you believe in all the four and pursue in all the four, then such a person is called one as a practitioner of Sanatana Dharma. For example, if one believes in moksha and is determined to use dharma as an auxiliary to it, then the chief objective of his life or her life is to pursue the path of self-realization. On the other hand, if the objective of life is only kama and the auxiliary tool used is artha, then this is not going to gain us freedom or moksha. So the choice is between following the four Purusharthas or only practicing the middle two, artha, kama, and leaving dharma and moksha apart. Sanatanis should follow the four. The third aspect is, when it comes to human mind, it's broadly into two kinds. Either it is selfish or it is non-selfish. Of course, it's a mixture of both is a different issue. One who is in a selfish state will always be very desireful and would get into bondage. One who slowly transforms into an unselfish person starts moving in the path of realization. 4. How do you summarize desires? It's put into 4 parts. Desire is nothing but a past memory of a pleasurable experience, or secondly, a possible imagination of that vivid pleasure once we have obtained it. 3. The present prompting us to enjoy that desire, either by recalling the memory or keep having an imagination over it. And 4. The immediate absence or the inability to grab it. Think for a while. It is these 4 collectively make us desireful. And in this state, can someone be happy in life? Can this state of restlessness give or yield happiness? It can't. 5. Maya, as we all know, is nothing but the potency of Brahman. The potency of an individual cannot be separated from that individual. But how is Maya perceived? For one who is worldly minded, Maya is real. For one who is in the path of progress towards self-realization, it is neither real nor unreal. He's trying to find out or figure out. And for a jnani who has attained self-realization, Maya, this universe, is nothing but an illusion. So there are 3 variations which it's capable of giving out. 6. Maya is composed of the 3 gunas, and therefore we are all advised to remember Sattvic guna will only generate more and more of happiness, even though it may begin with unhappiness. The ending will be happiness. On the contrary, a Rajasic guna starts with happiness and ends in suffering. And the Tamasic happiness is a happiness which is neither an enjoyment nor a suffering, but just characterized by dullness, ignorance, and illusion. 7. More importantly, human birth is the most priceless and invaluable birth amongst creations. It is every human being. You see an animal, you see an insect, you see anything around us. They would have all been one time jivas or in the form of human beings. It is said that the 3 states, less than a human, subhuman beings, arises out when we have committed more sins. More than a human being in the form of a deva or traveling through the light process, it is more on account of punya. But Vedanta reminds us the fact that when you are born as a subhuman being in any one of the forms, millions of the forms in any one of them, we don't accrete fresh karmas. They are only meant to be expended. Similarly, when we take a superhuman forms, they are gifts for all the punyas done, and that also will get only expended. Therefore, a mixture of punya and papa, when it is of a desired proportion, then the jiva takes the human form. And it is this human form with the power of reasoning which is capable of self-realization. And the 8th point they insist is, start self-realization as a process. One has to go back to the root. What holds all of us together in this world? What can give peace? What can transform us? Is nothing but dharma and the practice of dharma. And how do you know and how do you gauge dharma? Dharma is not easily definable. Dharma is not easily something which can be practiced over a syllabus. So, for one to practice dharma, one has to go and serve a guru and learn from the scriptures and through the divine holy lips of guidance what dharma is. 9. What can dharma do to a human being? What is that can happen to a practitioner of dharma? the heart will start to shower love. The mind will start to exhibit courage. The buddhi or the intellect will be so pure that it can cognize the distinction between the sense of rights and wrongs. And 4, the whole body comprising of the sense organs and the organs of action will be ready to offer samarpanam to a guru. When all these 4 happens, the guru guides one. You do your daily routine, but do it as a karma yoga. Karma, when practiced as a yoga, leads us and strengthens us the capacity to renounce more and more in favor of the universe. Guru also imparts us the way to perform bhakti. And the more and more we practice bhakti, it leads us to surrender. Therefore, this human body will offer the whole activity as a samarpanam towards one's guru by performing karma with an ability to renounce and performing bhakti with a mind to surrender. And when this happens, Guru, finding the competence of the disciple, starts imparting and guides him into the journey of self-realization, of imparting finally what is jnana, to reach the pure, changeless self. And when that happens, then whatever has to be caught is obtained. And the purpose of human birth gets achieved. Let's conclude tomorrow. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Offering the entire talk series at the lotus feet of Mahasannidhanam, Jagadguru Srimad Bharati Tirtha Mahaswamigal, and Sannidhanam, Jagadguru Srimad Vidushekara Bharati Swamigal. The 10th, 11th and the 12th Acharyal of the Sringeri Sharada Peetham occupy place of eminence and importance from a historical perspective too. Till the first 350 years, there were no villages in Sringeri, and up to the 11th Acharyal, the saints of Sringeri remained only in seclusion. They were tapasvis, they were yogis and jnanis of Brahma Vidya. But Dharma Paripalanam was not part of it at that point of time. The 10th Acharyal is Jagadguru Srimad Vidya Tirtha Mahaswamigal. The 11th Acharyal being Jagadguru Srimad Bharati Krishna Tirtha Mahaswamigal, and the 12th Acharyal being Jagadguru Srimad Vidyaranya Mahaswamigal, fondly called Vidyaranya Maharaj. The 10th Acharyal was born in the year 2028, and in his 100th year, that is 1328, Acharyal got his Sishya, the 11th Acharyal. And in 1331, he blessed and inducted the 12th Acharyal in the span of 3 years. How did this happen? Interestingly, the 11th and the 12th Acharyals were blood brothers in the Purvashrama. The 11th Acharyal as the younger brother and the 12th Acharyal as the elder brother. The 11th Acharyal reached Sringeri in 1328 and took to sannyasam, and therefore, though younger in age, became senior Jagadguru. The 12th Acharyal, after completing his studies in Kashi, reached Sringeri in 1331 and was blessed by the 10th Acharya also to be in the Peetham. There are two occasions where the Peetham had simultaneously three Acharyas. This is one occasion. In 1331, after inducting the two Sishyas, the 10th Acharya attained Videha Mukti, at which point of time he guided the 11th Acharya to remain in Sringeri till the last as a Moola Vigraham and blessed the 12th Acharya to go into Vijayatra and as a Utsava Vigraham. Therefore, between 1331 to 1356, 25 years, Vidyaranya Maharaj travelled. And in the process, in 1336, he established the Vijayanagar Empire. And after going to several places, came back to Sringeri with Harihara, King Harihara, in 1356. And between 1356 and 1380, both the 11th and the 12th Acharyas remained in Sringeri. The 11th Acharya attained Videha Mukti in 1380 and the 12th Acharya in 1386. So between 1356 and 1380, those 24 years, Vidyaranya Maharaj wrote various invaluable and priceless texts, both in the Vedas and in the Vedanta. Panchadasi is one such Vedanta text, authored jointly by the 11th and the 12th Acharya. They were together for 24 years in Sringeri. Some chapters by the 11th Acharya, some chapters by the 12th Acharya, and some both the Acharyas together. This was in chaste Sanskrit poetry. This was translated in the 20th century. There are many commentaries. What we followed through this lecture series is an English and also a Tamil translation and a commentary by Jnanananda Bharati Swamigal, a staunch devotee of the Sringeri Mutt. He was born on 26th October 1889. He was a practicing lawyer and led a normal life like all of us. But at some point of time, he decided to give up everything and go and serve the Acharyas. And by rendering the service to the Guru Peetham, he attained mastery over Vedanta. He has authored 41 texts in Tamil, 32 in English, and 10 in Sanskrit. And the major works of Adi Shankara has been compiled by him in 10 volumes and has touched and commented on, written commentaries on most of the important texts of Adi Shankara Bhagavad-Pada. Now, Panchadasi was again a commentary written by him both in English and in Tamil. He had a rare approach to the subject of Advaita. He used the tool of the opponent's sheer rationality and filled it with the missile called Advaita Siddhanta of Shankara Bhagavad-Pada and shot them back in through their own tool and mechanism. All his writings will be very poignant, dispassionate, and extremely perfect. Picture perfect analysis has been what the credibility he has sustained for years. His name was Krishnaswamy Iyer before he became Jnanananda Bharati Swamigal. How did he become? Jyeshta Mahasannidhanam, the 35th Acharya, Jagadguru Srimad Abhinava Vidyatirtha Mahaswamigal, blessed him to take to sannyasa, which happened in his life on 3rd November 1966 at Vrindavan. And he was a sannyasi between 1966 and 9th April 1975, when he attained Siddhi. It is this text virtually in ditto followed in all these lectures. I prostrate and offer my humble pranams holding the feet of the 10th, 11th, and 12th Acharya and dedicate this talk series at their lotus feet. I also thank profusely and remain very pranamful to Jnanananda Bharati Swamigal, but for whom I would not have understood or learned this text. It was his commentary which made me understand the subject and created an interest and awareness. I am therefore duty bound to offer my pranams to Jnanananda Bharati Swamigal with utmost reverence and kindness. We are also thankful to Swami Omkarananda of the Theni Ashram and Swami Sachidananda Saraswati of the Tuni Ashram in Andhra Pradesh. Both of them were happy to receive the talk series every day, and they gave their valuable guidance, blessings, showered their kindness, and supported me in this entire talk journey. Felt so safe and secured as two sannyasis blessed me constantly in this endeavor. And to both of them, the Acharyas of Sringeri Sharda Peetham remains the ultimate Guru Peetham. I offer my pranams to Swami Omkarananda and Swami Sachidananda Saraswati. I am grateful to each one of you for supporting and listening to these talks. Many of you messaged me, many of you wrote to me, many of you talked to me, and many were kind enough to forward it to various people and groups. But let me make it very clear. I am a novice. If something good has happened, a dull-headed, ineligible candidate has been blessed, and it is the sheer grace of Acharya which has resulted in this little effort, and therefore all that should go only to Acharya. But I would still request all of you that this text would have certainly given you a taste of Advaita, but to learn it, you should always take the guidance of a guru and learn it through the appropriate methodology, so that this helps each one of you in your transformation. I am grateful for the support. Many requested that I should also continue this talk series and talk about the 10th and 11th and 12th Acharya and the importance of Vijayanagara Empire, which is indeed an important subject. But I thought I should give a break. I'll stop with this. And during Chaturmasyam, it will be with the blessings of Mahasannidhanam and our Sannidhanam and their grace and guidance. I will try to resume the talks on these three Acharyas and the importance of Vijayanagara Empire, because but for Vijayanagara Samrajyam having not been established in 1336 by Vidyaranya Maharaj, the south of India could have been vanquished and conquered. It stopped there because of the effort of the 12th Acharya. How it happened, and therefore how Vijayanagara Samrajyam became the kingdom for Raja Paripalanam, and how Sringeri Samasthanam became was obligated to do the job of Dharma Paripalanam. All this is explained by Guru Kripa Vilasam texts, and all this is there. It was written at the instance and the guidance and blessings of the 27th Acharya. All the translations are all available. So this is a very important text. Every practitioner of Sanatana Dharma should know this history. How we continue to remain as Sanatanis is very crucial. Therefore, we'll certainly do a talk series on that, but after a break during Chaturmasyam. I'm thankful to one and all, and I once again, with folded arms, with my head rested at the lotus feet of Mahasannidhanam and Sannidhanam, this entire talk series is offered as a Guru Samarpanam, and may them guide me, and may them impart me, and may them transform me as whatever has been enshrined in this text, and guide me in the path of this glorious self-realization, Atmajnanam, or the bliss of the Brahman. Namaste.